So as you may know, we had our first Northern Arena event this weekend.
It was exciting to come here and be at the tournament. One of the first big tournaments we've ever been to in Canada. Thanks to Northern Arena.
You know, there's a lot more to come. Introducing Northern Arena.
Oh my goodness! That was ridiculous.
Hello and welcome to Squad, your source for everything gaming.
We are about to go to the 6th Invitational. Welcome to a new Squadcast.
Let's get into the game. Are you ready for the rematch of the century?
3 seconds remaining. He's got to get it on it. Oh, they score! Are you kidding me?
Welcome to the world of Fortnite.
You've got to perform at your highest caliber of competition.
Rocket League honestly is about community. Since the very beginning,
he's the prolific coach, the world champion himself.
Oh, here it goes. Put 2K on it. Put your bank count on it. Yeah!
Welcome back to Northern Arena's Mortal Kombat Clash.
It's going to be an optic Gimme Dixon and Paul, your Northern Arena Montreal champions.
Places like this, and with big crowds especially, it's awesome for everyone.
That's it! The Seattle Entourage are your Northern Arena EA NHL 20 Cup champions. This is Rocket League!
But Stewie's in the smoke. What is this? Stewie is incredible. Squishy's like, I'm not done. This one's for the fans. Boom! Bristini manages to do it for E United.
You have sore forearms, I'm assuming from gaming too much?
And he gets the headshot. It's the ace.
Oh my goodness! Unbelievable!
And welcome to Beyond the Nexus. This is episode number 2. My name is Visions. Alongside me, Beatdown Boulevard. And as we get ourselves into episode number 2, man, how's it going?
It's going good.
It's so long since we talked.
I know, bro. I missed
what have you done with all this time?
I was gonna say go to the washer, but I didn't even do that.
Well, here we are. You're stuck with me for an hour.
I know. It's okay. I'll be fine. It's not that bad.
Well, hopefully you guys will also stick with us here as we'll be getting through episode 2. We'll be kind of just be going over, our thoughts on the overall games. We're now into week number 6, and in the future as well, we'll be bringing on players and coaches and things like this, and having little segments to give you some inside information on kind of what's happening behind the scenes. So that'll definitely be a good time. But I mean, overall, right now, Beatdown, we are now in week 6. We are closing in on playoffs. We're getting through the second round robin, and we're starting to see some teams kind of falter, I would say. Mirage, Gamers Origin, not in a great spot right now, but there's still a lot of teams that can kind of squeak into these final 6 spots here for us, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, and I'm going to pull up like the standings in a second, but it's been pretty cool just to see how things are like really starting to shape up. I think the thing that's most interesting is that last game we saw, just because Misfits were like the big question mark for me on the upper end teams, whatever.
Sure.
And that's why I was kind of unsure about them. They were looking better last week, but today, like, they smoked Mirage. Like, it was
yeah.
close.
I've been really impressed because last week we saw the Zeri and I want to say it was like the Nautilus or Alistar level 2 play they did on Scarlet.
Was that them?
It was them who did it first, and then another team did it to them second, like after they realized that it worked. And they had done like that, like Zeri just comes flying over the wall with her E, right, and just surprises Scarlet. He's like, what the hell is going on here? He's like, the bot lane's in my lane. I think they thought there was like a cheese recall that took place, and like, no, that was not the case. But I've been actually, because I harped on Wulite quite a bit, and I hit on this in the broadcast, right, where I was like, listen, I don't think Wulite's been playing too well, and I think that he showed up quite a bit today. And I mean, just even the last little bit, like I think he's been better because before I was realizing, okay, like he's going down 20, 30 CS in lane, they're getting bullied out of lane, they're losing plates. It felt like they were just, losing to other bot lanes straight up 2v2, right? So I think it's been good to see him kind of bounce back.
Yeah, it's been great for the team overall too. I think like Chayak had a really nice game. The solo laners are really coming. I think Irrelevant's been good from the start, but like overall, Like the team is really starting to come together, and it's nice. It must be scary too with how much they put like into the roster in the first couple of weeks. But I mean, clearly when they talked to us, like they knew they had the system, they had the structure, God's plan and all that, and everything seeming to work out real good. They after today too, they got themselves up to. They moved 2 spots. Now they're in 4th place.
4th, yeah, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, yeah, Misfits, I mean, getting also back on top because you go through last year and, I mean, it was the battle of Misfits K-Corp, like time and time again through spring split, summer split. They both met each other in the finals. Grant now, spring split was like a 3-0, I think, for K-Corp, and then it was a lot closer and they had actually won the game 5 that time around. And it was Wulai who was like the X factor. That's why I was so big on him. And when I saw such an underperformance, I was, looking at like, wow, like what's going on? Is it just because there's so many good bot lanes in the league, which is, obviously a thing, but also when you play against really good experienced bot laners, like these Recklesses, like these Crown Shots, like you're also learning from them. You're figuring out what they're doing. Like, how are they punishing me? How are they putting me in these spots? It really is kind of down to, looking over that VOD. And it was really interesting because I've been talking to a lot of players, in multiple scenes lately. And I was really surprised with how much time they spend VOD reviewing and looking over, teams when they're preparing. Because usually I thought, okay, maybe that's like a coaching staff thing. But I've been noticing that it's like the players are right there with the coaching staff, making sure that they're also, VOD reviewing with them in the moment so that they're catching on to things kind of in that moment as well to be able to kind of implement going into their games, which has kind of been a big factor, I feel like, for a lot of people who have been showing improvements and who have also been able to punish certain play styles that have been like consistent over and over again for people like Bad Lulu, people like Scarlet, where they're starting to find windows of opportunity.
Yeah, and it's been interesting too, just watching how like laners in general have been improving, and the team's really starting to get their stuff together. I don't remember if I can swear on this, so I'm just gonna assume I can't. But yeah, everybody getting their teams trying to get their things together has been pretty impressive here. I think when you look, especially the thing that was most interesting to me was watching LDLC falter a little bit. That 1 week where they weren't looking so good. Sure. But I think after today, I'm pretty sure LDLC are just the best team in the league, bro. Like they actually play K-Corp next Thursday. I checked the schedule too, because that was immediately my first thought. I'm like, okay, when do these two teams play each other? Because this is ridiculous.
Well, that's the test. I'm on the fence. I don't know if I'm as convinced as you are for the #1 team. I think
they must be.
I think LDLC is really good. I think they're really good at team fighting, and I think they're good at finding ways back into games that they shouldn't. Yeah. Which has been, I think, one of the most impressive things for me, at least with them. Like 6K goal down, Gamers Origin. Even today, they falter a little bit, and then they make that play off the back end of just like a small little window timing of a shockwave into the revive, and then there was a crazy gore drinker heal that came through for the Aatrox, and then it's an immediate, a couple kills, TP top, and end the game. That is a game that they had lost 2 inhibitors in, that the game should have been done, and they still end up winning it. So I will give you that, but I think when it gets time for best of 5s, I don't know if they'll be as good. That's what I'm kind of questioning.
I don't know, because we've seen so many I don't necessarily think they will be, just because I don't think they'll be bad, because they have so many different looks as a team. Especially Ragnar, I'm about to look up the stats, how many champions the dude has pulled out. Today he brought out the Aatrox. Admittedly, I thought it was a little weird in the context of the game, but he ended up pulling it out at the end, dude, making it work.
Game-saving play, essentially.
Yeah.
And a situation that looked so bad because his GA got popped, and I was like, oh, it's over, right?
Yeah.
They caught him, or at least they're going to throw off tempo. But no, that wasn't the case. Yeah, I think Ragnar has been good. I just don't know if, I don't know, because there's so many games where they do lose control. Will the K-Corps, will the top teams be able to punish them like Vitality? I think of teams that can do that against you, as Vitality and K-Corp as squads that when they get a lead, they're really good at holding on to it, I feel like, for the most part. Now, sure, Vitality have had some slip-ups, but I feel like, those slip-ups are just shot calls that were wrong, in the moment where they think they can end and they don't, right? We saw that a lot in the early weeks. And now I think we're in this position where they are, a lot cleaner at closing out their games. They're not rushing steps. That was the thing with K-Corp, right? They were skipping steps.
True.
And it's not to say that, that hasn't been done versus LDLC. I just think that LDLC is definitely showing weaknesses, and have looked weaker in the second half, I guess, is more or less what I'm getting to. So I think they were dominating in the first round robin, and now teams are figuring out a little bit more okay, stop giving Yike Viego first off. This guy loves Viego. That's step #1. I think that, I don't know, teams are starting to adapt, starting to adjust, right? You can't just keep doing the same thing, and as much as they've been pulling out different play styles, I don't know, we'll see if they can kind of keep it going into playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most exciting thing. Who knows what teams might surprise us in the
that's always
in the best of 5s too. Watch Gamers Origin like sneak their way into the playoffs,
That could
and
be
then
a
they're
fun
just
one,
like the
yeah.
best of 5 gods. It's like,
I can
wait,
see that,
what just
actually.
happened?
They have a long way to go, right? Because
They do.
they're 4-8. They're 4-8 now, I want to say.
Something like that.
They're tied with Mirage, because Mirage should also be 4-8. So they're kind of in this position where I don't really know what's going to end up happening. It's definitely like a little bit rough for them. Yeah. They would have to pull off some miracle run, I think, to be able to get themselves a playoff spot, because they've lost a lot of the head-to-heads. So they need to do it through an overall win record, which there's only so many games left. There's a total of 9 weeks? 6 games. So they would have to win like a good 4 or 5 of those, you feel like, if they're going to end up finding and clinching a playoff spot here. So it's a lot to ask for. Yeah. But they have been an exciting team nonetheless. They're always bringing us flair.
Dude, I love Gamers Origin. I like Gamers Origin just because of like how much better they've gotten. It isn't enough because they're like what, 5th? I think they're 7th right now, actually. Not really in the greatest of spots, and it's looking like they aren't going to actually make it into playoffs. But like they've been just an enjoyable team to watch. I feel really bad because like today's game from them was honestly like pretty good, but they ended up getting who they played today, K-Corp?
I think so.
Yeah, which was like.
Right. Yeah. No, BDSA played K-Corp.
Oh, you're right. Hold on, I'm gonna look now because
Yeah, it becomes a blur when you cast all of them one by
Oh my God, yeah, it does.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who they played too. But either way, like I definitely think that they've been at least a squad to kind of like watch out for here and there. They played against Vitality.
They played LDLC.
Oh, they did play LDLC. There it is. And yeah, that's right. Yeah, it punished them for the play. Dude, and I mean, Vichachachi looked good. Like I've been really impressed with Vichachachi. I know like the fans, Chachi carry.
Yeah.
He's been good on the Ornn, good on the Gwen. Kennen I thought was kind of okay. He had moments, but it wasn't maybe a strongest champion. Yeah. But I've been a fan of that team. They just haven't really been able to consistently put that together. And like, what do you think the problem is for that squad? Because I know a lot of people have been blaming the hell out of Kareem and like been like, dude, like this jungler, he's been taking a lot of flack, a lot of flame. I haven't looked at it deeply enough to really give my own opinion on it, but there is definitely games where you can see him making mistakes. But are they like game costing mistakes? I guess is the question.
That's the thing. Like when I look at today's game, I think there were only one. He was playing Viego.
Yeah, he played decent early.
I think
3-0 early. I think.
Yeah, I think he was fine. I think part of the reason they end up losing that game, honestly, it's so wild that if they got those recalls off, they probably win that game.
True.
You know what I mean? That's the big thing.
You're actually so right.
They had it all in the bag. You just dropped 2 inhibitors. Who knows how much freaking gold they're sitting on that they're about to go spend? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But they actually like this is stars aligned kind of moment there in that game where that ends up happening. So in that situation, it's really hard to say. Like I think Kareem played fine that game. I think Gamers Origin overall played fine that game. It just ends up being late game League of Legends. If you end up getting aced, even if you're elite, if we're past 30, 35 minutes, those spawn timers are stupid. Like you probably lose the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, it's definitely one I'm sure they're frustrated with, right?
Yeah.
Because, like you said, you have it locked up, and then you see this Aatrox running up to you, and you're like, what the hell is this guy doing? And then, and then you're like, we're going to punish him, and then it's like, psych, you got punished. And you have to give a lot of credit to a massive shockwave that was hit that game, too.
Yeah.
From... I'm trying to think. Aka.
Aka
massive shockwave, just 4-man, I think it was, and then from there it was just ignite, let's go, like get in there, and they did. So that was a crazy win. I will give you that. LDLC, they're good at working themselves back in. Still, I want to see them. That game versus K-Corp next week is going to be really telling for me.
Yeah.
And I know they are best of ones. Like sometimes it can be a draft diff, which has been the case at a lot of our best of one games. It's going to be. It's just inevitable. But at the same note, I think K-Corp has just turned a new leaf. I've said that a couple times. I think they've just been really good.
I mean,
they're living up to their potential.
How can you say anything other than that though? Like we keep harping on the broadcast because like we have to. Like we had hype going into the league. The fans had hype going into the league for a lot of good reason. Seen the show match. Reckless is on this team. Like no matter what you say about his run on G2 and how things did not go very well, like this is a top tier player joining a tier 2 region essentially, right? In ERL. So the hype is warranted. Clearly they needed to work some things out, but in those first couple of weeks when we're watching what happened, we're just like, what?
Yeah.
What happened? Why is 113 just farming?
Oh my God! And his kicks today beats down. Like I want to go back and watch that kick that he hit on Crown Shot.
Which one? In the base. Yeah.
Because I was obviously calling the fight, and like when I'm calling the fight, I'm looking for like the big moments. Like I'm looking for the kicks. I'm looking for the thresh hook. I'm looking for these kind of plays. But I see the Sonic Wave connect, and I'm like, oh, there's no way he's going to take this. It's 5 players. There's a thresh. He can flay it. And then all of a sudden he goes, boom, Warthog Flash. And I'm like, oh, like I have to react instantly. But like in my head, I'm like thinking, like how did he just do that so quickly? But I have to keep casting the fight. So it was like a really interesting sequence of events that happened where he did it so quickly. I was just not ready for it whatsoever. And Crown Shot, still was able to kite away. But the problem was that it allowed everyone else to get in there. And then it was still a nutty fight. Like, it wasn't clean, but it was like, just like, I don't know, K-Corp style with the way that they like get stopwatches under the tower. Like it's a 1v2 for like, for the jungler. And I'm thinking, okay, like this is, maybe winnable. Like maybe they can hold on here. And they both managed to make it out. Cabochard tanks the tower and it lives. I mean, and they win that game. They win that game.
They had no business winning that game. I actually think like they were BDSA were in a really good spot. We were starting to see that trend of, K-Corp win all their games when they're ahead at 15 minutes. And to be fair, they were like always supremely ahead at 15 minutes. No problems with that. But this game, BDSA, much unlike last time, we're doing a good job at actually keeping the game slow, putting Aggressivo on something where he can mostly get through the laning phase and still be very impactful in his team fights.
Sure.
But the point I want to get into, and the thing that I kind of noticed about teams, or the difference between like better teams and not so great teams, is how your willingness to pull the trigger. And this is not even like a joke. This isn't like it's an analogy, but like I'm not even just saying this is not just like a simple platitude. It's literally that there are openings. It's easier for us to see them, of course, as fans, viewers, casters, whatever.
Yep.
But there are openings in the game where in the moment, players have to decide, okay, we can do this. And how consistently you're able to do that is usually one hallmark of a good team. And the thing is, only 2 teams in this league, I think, have that like very consistently. It's K-Corp and LDLC. They're both teams where they'll find any opening and they'll go for it like instantly. Like I don't know what's going on in their heads where they just know instantly like this is us. Let's go. Yep. And I think when you pick champions, especially like Kennen, and this is kind of the point I want to get into as well, you have to have that thought process because Kennen isn't the tankiest champion. Even with
it's true.
Even with 2, 3 items, he goes some AP bruiser items, but the point is, you need the right angle, but they only show up every so often. So and when I watch the games or when I'm casting the games, I think like, okay, he's got to be going in now. They're grouped. This is it. Like you have Flash, Rocket Belt. Like this is the combo. This is what happens. But you see the hesitation come through, and then you end up losing on those perfect moments. And I think that's what happened to BDSA today.
Yeah, it's interesting that you hit on that because Closer did like an interview at the beginning of LCS when he talked about one of the kicks that he had hit. I want to say it was like in the finals on Lee Sin. It was like a split-second decision.
I think I did hear that.
Yeah, like it was like in the blue choke where he had hit a carry and it had basically won them the fight. And he had like went on to say like this is basically something that you have or you don't. And not only does it take the small window of timing to be able to find the the opportunity to go for it, but it also takes the confidence to do it because in the back of your mind if I mess this up, well, this could very well be the game because I might throw and there might be a 4v5 for my team. So it comes with finding the windows of opportunity, as you mentioned, but also the confidence in the players to pull the trigger, get the job done, and then execute. And I think that you're right in saying that KC and LDLC have been those 2 squads that have been the standouts when it comes to at least those big plays for us. So I think it's been very fun, and it's obviously enjoyable, from our point of view, from the viewer point of view, when you see those things come together and you see those kicks happen, you see that big play come in, slicing maelstroms, hooks, like whatever it is, it's always incredible. But yeah, no, I was very impressed with 113. I'm not going to be surprised. Like it's going to happen. Like he's going to be on.
Yeah, let's see, dude. He's looking to be like the next Elioya or something like that. The kid is absolutely disgusting. Like it's not. It's so wild because we saw him in the show match do these crazy plays and stuff like that, and that's where the hype came from. We're like, oh, okay, there it is. It's like, oh. At the first couple of weeks, we're thinking, okay, we don't see it anymore. It's like, oh, maybe it was a fluke, this and that. Nope, never mind. From week 4 onward, this dude is beasting it. Whatever jungler he's on, it doesn't matter. And the Lee Sin especially is just nightmare fuel for 80 carries. Because I actually, I know what you mean. When that happened the first time he did it, because he did the Resonating Strike Warthog Kick Flash, twice. And the first time he did it, again, he just does it so quickly. I'm like, the hell just happened?
Yeah, like
I'm
you're
like,
like processing
wait,
it still.
where is he? And I'm like, oh my God, good luck, Austin.
Yeah, you're like processing what he's doing after he's already done it.
Imagine you're the 80 carry, like, what the hell?
Yeah, you're like, what just happened? And you know, like, this is what I have to look out for. So when it still happens and players still find the kicks, I'm always so mind blown in a 5v5 setting.
Bro.
You know, he is. I mean, yeah, it's so fun to watch.
It's what I love about like, it's like what I love about FGC as well. Just where in the, I love expression. I love mechanical expression. There's skill expression. That's the word I'm looking for. But you just see how skilled people are, and I love those champions. I love those games. It's why everyone, you know, if you've any bit in esports, you all know Moment 37, the Street Fighter 3 tournament. Oh my God, dude! Like, how crazy is that? When you get the context and you know, like, what's at stake in these situations, it's like a movie. Like, it's so ridiculous how in this 5v5 scenario, tournament format, tournament lives on the line. You're here in the grand finals. You do like the most complicated thing this game has with all this pressure, and then you just do it.
And then it happens.
Yeah.
And then you win the fight.
And then you win the game.
Make history, right?
That's like, it's ridiculous. Like, you know what? I don't care like how standard the insect has become since since it first happened like 7-8 years ago. But like, it is ridiculous to still see it happen time and time again, like in these really crucial moments, because like the pressure is what makes it.
Yeah, you know, it's actually funny that you bring that up because just doing like a standard ward hop, like, you know what I mean, back in season, whenever, I don't know when Lee Sin was added, but like season 3, season 4, like doing like a standard ward hop back then was like, oh my God. Like that was like the equivalent of like the faker outplay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That he did on, I forget
Zed?
who it was. Yeah, but he did it on Zed. I'm trying to think of the player he did it against. It started with an R, but anyway, I mean, I'm sure there's someone who knows for sure. But anyway, everyone knows that clip. Anyways, the point. But it's like the equivalent of like that kind of an outplay. Like that's what just like the basic ward hop kick was. To now where it's like it's all about closing the distance with the sonic wave, ward hop, kick flash, and it's it's a lot. It's funny when you dumb it down and it's like, oh, like we see it so often, but when you're the player and you're in the moment, man, it's something exceptional. So
dude, anybody who
awesome.
anybody who tries to talk about that, like, oh, that's the standard, I'm like, hop in the practice tool. Let me see it.
let me see you just do that versus like the actual dummies there.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? I do that to warm up, but
Me
like
too.
sometimes I even mess it up. So like,
Dude,
you know
all
what I mean?
the time.
It's it's something special.
It is. I actually did it once in a normal game. You know how hyped I was?
It feels good.
Yeah, dude.
Right?
And you know what? It didn't matter that it was a moo and I killed my team for it. That's not the point.
Yeah, kicked him in, ulted the whole team.
Dude,
I insected him, guys. I don't know what you want from me.
I was telling you, I was playing with friends, and they were literally like, "The hell was that?" I'm like, "Yeah, but did you see the kick?
Did you see the kick?
Like, it's crazy, dude."
Did you see the Nexus after?
Yeah. Hey, I think we won that game. I don't remember though. But yeah, dude, it does make it hype. That's why Lee Sin, you say it. They always make sure Lee Sin is viable for Worlds, and for good reason. Like, it's so fun, especially when you have like the Korean and Chinese players.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I wonder if there'll ever be like another champion added like that, because like now, I wouldn't say like any of the champions are like super mechanical. Maybe I think Zeri is one of the ones that are like maybe one of the more mechanical ones, because it is all about positioning. You do very little damage until you get a lot of items in. And yeah, it's all kiting, movement, positioning, and I mean, it just takes one misstep and you're out. You know what I mean?
You ever watch Gumayusi play it? Like,
oh yeah.
Oh my God, dude! Like you're just watching.
It's different.
Dude,
it's a different champion
first
when
of
he
all,
plays it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You think like, yo, why Zeri doesn't do this? What the hell?
Yeah.
You're like unlocking abilities that aren't even there.
I know.
It just looks so. Doesn't look fair. And I mean, to be fair, she's broken, but like.
Yeah, it's interesting. But no, it's nonetheless. I mean, we do love seeing those champions, because as much as you know, it maybe isn't fun to play in solo queue, it's extremely fun to watch at the highest level, and it's also fun to see, you know, what the opposition and the opposing team that's playing against it has in store to potentially shut it down, because that's always a thing too. When you see these picks, as you know, we talk about like, oh, they let Gwen through, oh, they let Thresh through, these high priority picks. But you know, I mean, like, what do the answers look like? And when we get closer and closer to playoffs, I feel like that's when you get to see, you know, some of those answers come out, because there is such thing as teams holding information, knowing, hey, like, we know this is good into it, but we don't want to show the rest of the league just yet. You know what I mean? We want to save this. It's just a matter of making sure that you have a clinch spot before, you know, you bring it out. But at the very least, I think that is always kind of an interesting dynamic that plays out here for us. And yeah, man, I mean, we always love seeing high mechanical champions. It's just fun. There's nothing else to say about it, you know? It's so fun.
And you know what? Maybe your point about your point about like having answers to like really strong champions is funny too, because I'm thinking to myself like, okay, because you know when I'm on the cast, of course I just want to be like, you're letting Zeri through, like that's crazy.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I absolutely say that because that's crazy. But also you're like, okay, now you know, gears start spinning. What's the goal here? Obviously you know this is gonna go through. Why did you let it through? Okay, you have like Leo Volibear or some weird stuff like that where it's like, okay, I mean to be fair, one, Zeri has to go cleanse now. Two, Zeri sucks until like 2 items. So if you just beat the crap out of her until that point, you can win games like that. I can see it. And it's just like I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, until we see it, like you don't really rise the other side of the argument, I guess, right?
No.
Or bring up the other side. So I don't know. It's very interesting here for us.
Yeah.
Also, just for anyone that is currently in the chat, we are taking questions. If anyone wants to say anything, ask anything you want. Players, predictions. Just absolutely anything. How much I love Beatdown. I mean, you know, how good I think he is. I think he could be better.
I was going to say, League of Legends, are you sure?
You know,
Definitely.
you want. Anything you want, guys. Feel free. Drop it down in the chat. We'll be looking over and answering any questions. But yeah, anything else stick out from you today besides the KC win, I think, which was a really big one to constantly show us that they are really good. That was also after a slowly early game where they didn't find a lead, right? Which I thought was like one of the big things because they're so good at just like blowing the game wide open, destroying a laner, and then just snowballing the hell out of it because of it. So I thought it was good that they did have to play like a kind of slower game. It was even, and then they still won. Mainly just through team fighting and I would say skill, I feel like.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting to me about that game is it's less about KC and more about BDSA, because I think them being able to keep the game the way it was for so long, I think is really impressive on their part.
Yeah.
Just because it's shown how much better they've been getting too, because they were, I mean, they're in 5th place right now, 7-5 tied with Misfits, right? They're in a pretty decent spot in the middle of the table. It's just interesting because like we saw some of the games they lost like did not look good. Like they've lost to Mirage, who are borderline out of playoff contention and stuff like that, right? But it seems like they have actually managed to kind of not figure out a game plan, because I feel like the game plan for them is usually play towards bottom side, but really try and make it work. And the thing that's always tough for me, and the thing I always like, and like I'm sure there's context and stuff that I don't know, and I always bring up Shio and how he isn't as active in the early game, but I kind of liked what he was doing today. It wasn't as much setting up plays. It didn't always go through, but a lot of it was like, all right, where are you, 1-1-3? And he was covering actually a lot of the right plays, which I think made a big deal and stopped KC from snowballing the way they usually do. And we talked about it before we went into the game, and that's what teams probably have to do if they want to beat him, especially BDSC, who like to play to scale.
And that's what we criticized Shio for last time was, not being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
When he didn't cover the first dive that came through when Aggressive he got thrusted, like he was out, he was completely out of the game. I mean, he was just out of it. So it was a really tough one for him, and Shio was in a position where he could have stopped a lot of those moments. If he had just a little bit more awareness or was just in the right place at the right time, just a second too even sooner when he was on Krugs when it happened, right? There's a lot of those moments. So I did think that he recovered really well, and I also think just the game plan of BDSA, I would not be surprised if other teams also follow through with this, where like they had dropped all of their early wards just to make sure like they know where 1-1-3 was. Like they invested, I think, like 4 wards to figure out where he was. They had dropped, like I think someone had bought an early pink ward, placed it at the start of red. There was a ward over the tri-brush in the bot lane, and then there was one in tri-brush in the top side, and then they had warded Raptors after the first wave that came through mid. So like they had invested that much vision, which is a huge part of like the early game, and like you're not going to be able to really get a lot of information after those expire, but it's all about just knowing where he is in the moment, right? Which was something that they did figure out. Aggressive, right? Saw him in the top side, backed off, played his life. So I thought everything was played out really well.
Interesting. Not necessarily that he saw him. It was the Raptor ward that Chico ended up putting in that was a big deal because I remember 1-1-3.
He started it, right?
He didn't even start it. I think he just went past the Raptors.
No, I think he started it, and then
maybe he did.
Yeah, and then top side, like he saw the wave was pushing, and he thought it was a moment to go in, and then he had passed and left them. So they saw him kind of leave off of the Raptors.
And
then
that's
go
when
into
they
the river.
Picking, so they ended up catching him out, but that was good. And that's why I thought it was a solid game from Aggressivo too. Like the dude, he was. They were trying to thrust him again, if I'm being honest, but he did a good job of like dealing with it this time around. And it is interesting, like that early vision game was so important because I don't remember if I mentioned on the cast, but the thing I liked was that they put the deep ward into, I think it was the blue buff there for who the hell were they playing? Shields
BDSA.
jungle, yeah.
Yeah.
So they put the blue ward into Shields blue,
Yeah.
and then immediately there was no offensive vision placed early on, and 1-1-3 solo start. So it's like, okay, where is he? So then that's a great way to answer it, because even though it is a little risky, because you get that information, it honestly saved their early game. Because KC is that kind of team where it's like, look, bro, they got a snowball ready to go.
Yeah.
And as soon as I swear every game, these last 6 games for them has been they have the snowball, it is at the top of the hill. And that first kill is just that little nudge. That's
all they need, and then it just comes rolling down.
It's just play after play after play, and that's kind of more of the confidence game we were talking about earlier, and that pulling the trigger where it's like early game, these 2v1 dives, these things, they dived Aggressivo and the Kennen, this guy had ultimate, and it was just perfect. They know, they probably know, like, oh, Cabochard, you're playing Irelia, she's broken, you'll keep healing.
Yeah.
Just take the tower.
The most interesting part about that was like they needed to snowball with the comp that they had. At least it felt like it. Irelia,
I think so.
Lee Sin, Zoe. I mean, they had a Jinx like for some late game insurance, but they weren't playing around Reckless to the point where he was like, you know what I mean, at a point where he really could carry. He was behind Crown Shot the entire time. He had to give up a lot of waves, a lot of XP while Hontero was making these roams, as he typically does, right? He roams a lot away from Reckless, and I think that Reckless takes this back seat, even on these carry picks, a little more often than people I think originally anticipated with this team. At least I did. Like I thought, like at least you go back to the Fnatic days, and I mean it holds true now, even like right now, right? Where it's like it's all about bot lane, get bot lane ahead, weak side top, and see exactly what you can do, through the lead that you get. But at the same note, like Reckless is not someone that's going to get aggressive. He's not going to take a 50-50 fight.
Nope.
He's very calculated in the sense that you can always rely on him to get to the late game and be relevant. So I think that's exactly what they did, and he did become relevant in those final fights, and output a lot of damage that was required and needed in order to win it.
Yeah, and I think that's important just because it makes the playstyle for K-Corp that more flexible, just because you can play the Reckless bot if you really want to. I mean, we've seen games, they did it at Nice, where this dude had tons of kills in the earlier parts of the game, and then you have games like today where like, okay, Cabochard's on Irelia, Reckless, do your thing, we're going to be over there. We'll pick you up after school and all that good stuff, right? And my God, did Reckless get an A that game, because he was able to output a lot of damage here. Of course, a lot of it was... It feels like this was one of those games where, like, of course, Reckless played well, but it's one of those, like, where it was a lot of the rest of the team, like 1-1-3 again, with those insane setups there, making Crown Shot an irrelevant player. And just Cabochard, too, being such a split push monster. Like, I think, just like that, it's crazy. Because of the changes they made to, like, Trinity Force and stuff like that, and I think they also did to Divine Sunder, and they give more health, all of a sudden, Hullbreaker, Trinity Force, and like some other third item is just going to be the standard now for top laners, I think. And you know what? I mean, it's fine just because I think the base stats for Hullbreaker are actually like really good for like fighter type for like the melee champions, just because it's what, 50 AD
Something
and 400 health? Like that's
a lot of health.
That's a lot of, that's the thing too, and that's what makes the Titanic Hydra build third so good on it too, because ever since they changed it so Urgot couldn't build it first, and 2% of your max health is also given, it's like given as AD or something like that. Dude, you're disgusting in the side lane.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, because it's going to make split pushing actually like possible again. Like for the longest time, you could not split push. Like it was all about the team fighting, and the 5v5, at least especially the first half of the season, has been all about fighting, playing for dragon stacking, and things like this. So I think that now that you at least can enable more split pushers, it's going to be really good news for the teams that actually understand macro at a super high level. KC's one of those teams, and the other one that I think will be really good in this meta now is going to be Vitality, because you go back to one of their wins where they were 1-3-1ing with like Camille, and I can't remember who the other side lane was, but like they were finding so much success purely through a 1-3-1, and then we also saw Shagenda, sure it was Gwen, but same sense, where the fact that he is taking over the side lane, and this is all before a lot of the changes that we're getting now. So I think now that we have them in, we will typically see and might see some teams opt in for the counter pick top, see if you can get yourself some of these aggressive picks where you can punish the laner, get a lead, snowball it, and take over the side lane to the point where someone has to match it. And that's how you create TP advantages. That's how you create different dynamics. Once you create a TP advantage, you push in the top lane, someone's got to match it, then you can look for a 4v5. There's like so many different ways that you can approach the game now, from a 5v5, 2024 point of view. That shakes things up, and I think will be really good for the teams at least that understand macro at a high level.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, like we are like watching it in ERL. So even though like the macro for these teams is pretty good, I do wonder like if we're going to get to that point, because an interesting thing I don't know why, it's a thing like I've been like thinking about, and I can't believe I haven't brought it up with you guys yet. But it's like the most interesting thing about not just ERLs, but sometimes it's true in like North America too, where you're at this level of play where it's like you need attention. So maybe the willingness or like the ability to play a lot of different champs, a lot of different styles isn't something I know. I've heard that's especially prevalent here.
Yeah.
In the ERLs, where it's like, okay, well, to get noticed, the only way you get noticed is if you get to EU Masters. Like these individual tournaments, LFL might matter just because it's the biggest one, but if you're playing in like NLC or any of those other regions, it's kind of whatever. So you do have teams who just kind of stick to this one style, because if you do that one really well at this level of play, that's how you get noticed, interestingly enough. So it'll be cool to see who actually tries to do this kind of play. I think it'll take a while, because usually how these things end up working is, at least LCS, all those top levels end up starting up these styles, and then the trickle down.
Yeah, you replicate it, you figure out how to, implement it into your composition, your team, and then, that's definitely it. But I think, like, when you have, like, teams that already have this experience, like, it feels like they're more willing to try it first.
That's true.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like just back to the point of Vitality, have already done this successfully with a 1-3-1 comp when they ran, like, the Ezreal Karma game. And Jesk also kind of had, like, a 1v9 kind of game. But, like, it was because they had the split pressure, he was able to kind of do what he did. So we'll see. I think that's the one team that I have my eyes on. I'm still not sleeping on Solari just yet either. I think these guys are going to find form again. I think it was just, like, there were so many teams that found such a great game plan. It's like, okay, well, like, Scarlet is the pinnacle of this team. He's the pillar.
Yeah, he's
if
really
you,
good.
If you just make the pillar crumble, like, the team crumbles with it. Like that's kind of what ended up happening. I mean, there was a lot of things that I think were really unexpected that you can't really prepare for. Like, you're not really going to expect the bot lane to level 2 you into the mid lane. You're not going to expect, I think, just a lot of the things that have been coming in. But there's been a lot more attention thrown his way. And I feel like the big thing with Scarlet for at least the first, like, at least 4 or 5 weeks or so, or maybe 4 weeks, was the fact that he was really good at getting himself out of those situations and never even putting himself in them, where he was ungankable, where now I think teams are starting to find windows.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because it makes me wonder about certain champ picks, because the thing I get surprised about, maybe it's less so on 12-3, unless you ban away like the Ahri, for example, but when I mean, you probably should. She's actually really good right now.
She's good.
The thing that's interesting to me is I'm surprised we don't see a lot of J4s come through, just because when people bring it out, especially when you're like with how prevalent Jinx Aphelios are, Jhin. If you look in the mid lane, it's like things like Syndra, Vex, Victor, stuff like that. All immobile. Not a whole lot of movement to themselves here. I'm just amazed we don't see a whole lot of Jarvan coming through. And I think that's something like if you're playing, I don't know, if I'm playing into Solary and you want to shut down Scarlet like that, the way they did it that time was fine. I'll definitely give them credit for that, but I'm surprised we don't see things like you see Scarlet's on Victor, Scarlet's on Xerath, even though he would never blind Xerath.
Yeah.
Just pick Jarvan, and then you just, oh my god, you just dunk on him every day.
Yeah, pretty much, right? No, it's interesting to see the meta evolve. I think where Jarvan was like super popular for a bit, still have hyper carries in the meta, still Aphelios and still Jinxes, but I guess Thresh is almost being paired with all of them whenever he's up. Steelback's Thresh today too. Talking about Solari here, man. Holy. The lantern he threw to Azza when he got kicked in to like that red jungle. It was like he knew it was happening. Like he threw the lantern as like the ward hop was like coming in. So he already knew where Azza was going.
What a god,
and the lantern was there for him to take it immediately out. And at that point you're just like, dude, like what happened? Like, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything wrong. It was just Steelback's immediate reaction. That's one of the first times we've seen him on Thresh too, and it looked fantastic.
Agreed. And that's the thing too. We were even kind of joking about it with before we went live in between the last game and this, where 1-1-3 goes for like the insane kick-ons. It's like, what do you do if you're Thresh? You flay it. And I was saying on my way out, I'm like, you got to predict it. And I mean, Steelback, he was predicting. He knew. That's what's. It's kind of the challenge there. And speaking of champ picks too, like another thing I'm so surprised about, like when I was making notes, you probably saw, like I put champs I thought we'd see too. Like yesterday, it was Vitality B who did this, where they pick Hecarim first for Skeens. I think Hecarim is nuts right now. I can't believe he's not being like played more. And it's actually like Hecarim Karma is like the nasty combo I find, where it's like the speed boost, you get the mantra E, you get
Right. Yeah. So
and
much
everything
movement
like
speed.
that. And I feel like it's such a strong like draft you could get for yourselves on B1 because like you pick or blue because you take Hecarim, they pick I don't know they'll probably pick Jinx or
Felios
Thresh or
something
something like
yeah.
that, or depending on whether or not you ban Thresh, you take Hecarim. And then once they take that, you take Ezreal Karma, and then it's like, okay, you get your double poke bot lane as long as Caitlyn's not on the table, which I mean she's also nerfed, so.
Yeah, and like there's been like no success with her, because what Codystone lost with Caitlyn yesterday,
that was
right?
new Caitlyn, which that was nerfed Caitlyn
I guess,
too.
but I mean, she's like, I don't think she has a win in LFL.
No, I don't think so
she has
either.
one.
No,
And
the
she was
teams
like pick
will play
banned for like
her
the
well.
first like 4 or 5 weeks, which is funny.
People were respecting it because her early power was like objectively really good. It's just playing around it is very difficult. That's kind of the problem.
I think it's like a scrim champion too.
Maybe.
That's how I feel. I think there's a lot of champions that are scrim champions. Like they just pop off in scrims, and it's because like you're always playing a little more aggressive, like than you should be. Like once you get on stage, I mean, not that I'm speaking from experience, I'm speaking from players though. Like it's a different environment all of a sudden. It's like like it's way more punishing. If I mess up, I overextend, I could cost my team the game. So you're a lot less willing to take risk. I feel like, and a huge part of playing Caitlyn is playing risky, aggressive, under tower, poking, trading out with your health bar while you're on their side of the map. So you have to kind of play with a certain kind of like cockiness almost, right? Yeah. And if you're not one of those players that you can't do it, I just don't feel like you're ever going to make that champion work. So I don't know.
I agree, and it's definitely teams who are more of kind of thinking like, oh, Caitlyn is strong, we can get it to work. Or like you say, it ends up working for them in scrims and stuff like that, right? So either way, it doesn't end up working, and she's probably done deal. For the moment, it's probably just going to stick to the hyper carries, the occasional Ezreals and stuff like that. I don't think we're going to see Kalista, which is fine. I don't think she's good right now. I don't know why that popped into my. Someone played it yesterday, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
And it was. I think it was like. Maybe it was LCS on like Sunday or something. I don't remember what I was watching, but I just remember like, what?
Was it like tactical or something?
No, it was tactical.
Was it Kalista main on TSM?
He does play a lot of Kalista. You're right. I don't know, but it's just interesting what the bot lane meta is right now. For the most part, it's these. It is the hyper carries. Ezreal, I don't know if he necessarily qualifies. He does a lot of damage later, and I think he's. I think he is better now that Caitlyn isn't around, just because Caitlyn can punish him like really hard. Like I watched the game too where they blinded Ezreal Karma and Kate Lux was up, so they took it, and that was a hard game to watch for Ezreal fans, bro. Because holy.
Look at that confirmation right there. See, I called it. Scrim champions right there. We're getting it.
Kate Lux being a scrim bot lane, but a real. Oh yeah, there you go. Like shout it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think that there's very much champions that exist in the meta, and just even in the game period, that are just really good in scrims, and you just can't always translate it. You know what I mean? Yone, yeah, that's what I imagined, right? With like that was definitely one of the champions that I thought was probably like Rangjun's probably just solo killing the mid laner over and over and over. He's probably like 4 or 5-0. He's taking over the game. They're like, yeah, let's bring the Yone in. Like we're stomping with it, and it's hard to also step away from that too after you've been successful with it with your practice, right? Like it's really hard to say like, okay, well it worked for us, so we might as well try it and see if it works. But they did continue to try, which means that I think Rangjun was just picking it like every other game or something whenever they weren't just banning it.
I think it was like 2-3 games in a row or something.
Yeah, no, I just meant like in scrims, like he was probably playing it like every other game, like to the point where it's like, okay, like we're stomping, like let's just bring it out, it's good.
Yeah.
But it's one of those champions that like if you don't find like a kill or two in lane, then you're not just running over your lane opponent, and it's pretty hard to make that champion work in team fights because you get bursted if you ever push too far. So I don't know. I think there's a lot of champions that very much been exposed. So it's always interesting, I think, when we see them pop up and you see like the hype and the popularity around them, and they get shut down when it comes time to see if they perform.
Yeah, it's so interesting too when you think, because there's so many factors to just playing the game. And that's the cool thing about it, because like that's one thing I really like about League too. I always thought the draft phase was like really cool.
Yeah.
It's like the League of Legends is 2 games, where it's like you play the draft and then you play the game. Because of course, playing the game, you can lose hard in that first game, but I think more often than not it ends up being like how you play things out. Because furthermore, like when you think about and there's always context to champion picks, team compositions, and stuff like that, which is why it's always interesting to like learn about the players and what they're good at. Like, Tactical, big Callista player. If I see him playing Callista, I'm like, okay, well, Callista's whatever, but this is Tactical's
Tactical's Callista, yeah.
And I mean, you do have a lot of laning power, so like if you smash early game, then yeah, sure, you can win the game. But usually people don't do that and stuff like that. You know, you put respect on the people who have made a name for themselves on certain champions, and then that can kind of change how things worked out.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like the one really big difference I like from most of the other esports that I work in is the fact that League of Legends it has like all these phases, right? Like the draft, the early game, the mid game, the late game. Like, where are you strongest? Like, are you good at getting a good composition? Great. Are you good at executing with that composition? Are you good at an early game? You know, are you a bad early game team? Great at late game? Like, there's all these different dynamics, and it's really a lot about finding your identity, especially as a new team, and you're trying to get a feel for other teams, like what is working for them. You know, why is our play style, you know, we're not working into, you know, X team here, like, but it worked well, you know, versus, you know, a team at the top. Like, there's all these different, like, dynamics and questions that get brought into the mix, which makes it really fun because it's, like, a lot of problem solving.
Yeah,
like, outside of the game when you're preparing and inside of the game when you're in the moment. And you have to figure out, you know, what are your windows, what are their windows, how do we stop them, and how do we engage on our opportunities. Like, I love that little, like, chess game, as you called it today, when we were kind of watching over, I think, the KC match versus LDLC, where it's like so much back and forth. Nothing's happening. No kills are going down, but there's so many little things that are playing out for us on the map. You know?
Dude, it's a really exciting game to watch, especially like it takes a while to get a handle on, just because it's all those phases, all this give and take, all this complications makes it very difficult to keep up with.
Yeah.
But it is rewarding, just like watching the game, and then when you see being able to follow along and watching things play out, it's really cool and it's really fun.
I agree.
And it is interesting too, trying to get an idea on like what because it's so wild how there are 150 some odd champions.
So many now.
Renata Glass just came out today too, making it 150 whatever else.
Yeah.
And we'll forget about how broken she is, but the point is, it's so insane when I look at stats. And whenever I'm looking at stats, preparing notes for broadcast days, I'm looking at how many champions have been picked. I'm like, you serious? Like, is this the fact that you can make arguments for so many of such a big roster of champions is also like why I like this game. Like when I was at the end of Overwatch, from my time in Overwatch, I was always like, this is the same stuff, man.
It's not
all
enough,
the time.
right?
It was mirrored. Very few people tried breaking the mold. And to be fair, like the constant balance changes were argued to be part of the reason why. And it was just, but it was also like, I think there was more clearly broken things in Overwatch, where it's like, hey, this is too good not to play. So they played it. But in League, it's like, yeah, some things are broken, but some will bring out like, I don't know, dude. I don't think Poppy Top is very good, but like Vizichachi will bring it out and
all of a sudden it's really good, right?
just smack people around, and it's like, all right, my bad, dude.
Yeah, you know, I remember like an old school Chachi interview with like Shocks or something, where she talked to him about the fact that he loves playing like specifically counter matchups, where he can figure out, okay, like how can I play this to the best of my ability? And I think a great example of what we saw, at least really recently, was in LCS when we saw Fudge play Soraka into Victor, and like, you know, typically like the Victor should smash the lane, right? But was unable to do so, and it goes to show, like, at times, like, if you can't find the full punish, if you can't put yourself in a spot where, you know, you're actually, you know, winning out in the lane like you should be when it comes down to just the fundamentals of both of those champions, that's when, you know, players have that edge when they're just, you know, the pocket pick. Like, they put so much time into it, they know what to do, they know what needs to be done, and they get the job done.
Well, I think it was either Joshi or Cubby who once told me this, where, because we were talking about matchups, and one of them said that you could talk to a one trick, because of course there's so many one tricks on like the NA ladders. Like you could talk to a one trick about supposed counter matchups, and they'll tell you exactly how to beat it. Because it's like there's a way around these things.
Mistakes can be made, right?
Mistakes can be made. Mistakes can be forced. And I think the first time I saw that was actually a video where, you know, Silas is not great into cast, right? Just fundamentally because of the miasma. But I watched the video. I think Midbeast did it, funny enough, looking back. But it was about how Faker was playing the Silas and how he outplayed the hell out of the Cassiopeia. And I was just watching it, I'm like, oh wow, that's so interesting. And this is when I was still like a couple months into the game, so I was still trying to like, I mean, I was still trying to learn, but like I was really trying to learn back then.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting thing to think about, where like matchups, unless it's like really simple, like I win because of like some point and click nonsense, it is cool to see this kind of stuff happen.
True. I agree, man. No, it very much is. I don't know. It's been fun. It's been fun so far. Week number 6, day number 2. Can you believe we've almost been an hour into this, by the way?
I actually can't. I thought you were going to go with the route of, can you believe it's 6 weeks in? I can't believe either of those things.
Other those things, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I remember week 1 where we first walked, like, into here. I remember, no, before that, I remember when we first looked here and we had, like, a mini rehearsal. We were looking at the studio for the first time. Everybody's meeting up, and it was just like, okay, cool, this is going to be fun. And then all of a sudden, like, okay,
Boom,
playoffs are in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I know. It's been fun. If you guys have any last questions that you want to ask Beatdown or I before we end off episode 2, make sure you do that here. It's been fun, man. It's always, I don't know, so mind-blowing how you just talk about something like League of Legends and just, I don't know, a full 60 minutes just kind of just flies by here for us. But it's been a fun time.
Easy.
Also, we have episode 1. If you guys missed that one, I believe that should be on the YouTube channel.
Not yet, but it will be soon.
Okay, will be soon. We'll be corrected on that. So we'll be soon. This one should also be up there with it very soon as well. We'll have all of that content sent your guys' way. And on top of that, that's kind of the end of day number 2. Anything else? Anything else you want to get in? Any closing thoughts for week number 6? Any big predictions? Anything like that?
Big predictions. I'm trying to look at, like, I want to see if I can, like, justify a spicy prediction, but I'm not sure that I can. Maybe, okay, the best thing I can think of when I look at, like, the standings right now about who's going to make playoffs, it's tight for everybody except Opalon, right? Even the 4 and 8 teams, Gamers Origin and Mirage, they could technically upset if they just, like, turn their lives around today, like David Goggins style. You know what I mean?
But will they do it? I'm putting you on the spot. Yes or no? Like, they could. They could.
No.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Okay.
Yeah, you're right.
I was hoping for a spicy take from Beatdown.
Yeah, I think Mirage are done. I'm not gonna lie. I don't
That's
think
fair.
The only team.
Carl's gonna hate you for that, but
I
I think
think
that's
know.
fair.
I'll give him. I'll buy him a coffee or something. Oh man, and I think Game World are the only ones not in 6th place who could be.
Yeah, I think Game Words look good.
Dude, if you look at, like, the top 4, Vitality, LDLC, Carmine, Misfits, nah. I think after seeing Misfits today, they're not dropping. I'm so sure of it. BDS, I don't think they'll drop. They have, like, a slightly higher chance. They could. Solary,
I think they'll be okay.
I think Solary is the most precarious. That's the thing. That's why I agree with you in their potential and stuff like that.
Right.
But it's, coulda, woulda, shoulda, will they?
Sure, I think they will.
That's fair. I think they very well could, but I can also, on the flip side, see Game Ward managing to eke their way into playoffs.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
We got one question in.
Oh, let's go.
It's about Opalon.
Oh,
That's the end of the stream. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
What do we think about Zicor's arrival here coming in? Personally, I thought Tiger was okay. I mean, I don't think that the 80 carry was the problem of that team.
Nope.
I do think that bringing a new player in is always good for a fresh start. And, could just kind of, rejuvenate the team, right? Like, just get everyone kind of, uplifted. Spirits are good. Like, I think that's something that can happen. But I think that he was getting caught out a lot today with the Vex ultimate. Feels like he was just getting hit like every single Shadow Surge. I think it was against Vitality that they played, right? And Diplex was just finding every single one. So I don't think it's been anything incredible. I don't know what he's able to do as well. It's a lot of pressure to put on one player to come in here and look at, being the hero for the squad. But at least for me, I haven't seen too much of a difference compared to what we saw from Tiger. I don't know.
That's fair. If we're talking about just purely performance, I think it's the same. I pretty much see the same thing. But I think the problem is, and, like, there's a lot of context we lack. So being as, like, understanding as I can be, this is a team that when they got out of Division 2, they lost a lot of their roster. I think Darlick's the only one who was back, right?
That's right.
So you just have your top laner. You have a whole new roster that you pull together at the very last moment because, teams got better offers, and it happens. That's the nature of Tier 2 play in general. It's just like that. So with this roster, they're struggling. I think I said it on last week's episode, and I've been saying it, like, all the time. Like, the team just feels like they are struggling, the players themselves, with what to do in the game. We talk about solving the game. They really struggle to just do the simpler stuff, even when they have these simple drafts that are easy for them to play for. So I think Zcor is a good addition. Based on what people who have been watching him told me, it makes a lot of sense because even though I agree Tiger was fine, I think Zcor will fit the team better because they don't like to play for bot lane. And I think, considering yesterday's game, to be fair, like, he was getting a lot. He didn't die too many times, and the few times he did, it was one of those, okay, like, your mistake was being on the map because you're playing into a hack room, you know what I mean?
Yeah, not much you could do.
I don't really fault him for that, and I think being able to play away from bot, having an AD carry who can actually be reliable on the weak side and then still team fight well is important. Secor seems to be that kind of person. So on paper, I think he's a good addition to a team. It's just, it was never going to be
Solve
like
the problem, right?
Especially not day one. You know
Definitely
what I mean?
not.
This is just going to be the start of what's hopefully a solving process for this roster where, like, we already know spring playoffs are chalk. The only thing they really do is mess with people's chances by finally getting some wins, which I think would be hilarious.
It would be.
But it's going to be about, like, we got a summer split to play for here. So Oplon can still play for the rest of the year. And I'm sure that's what they're focusing on as well. And I think come next split, whether or not they go winless this split, I think next split they'll come back better. Just because when I look at the players individually, I think they're fine.
Yeah.
I think they're able to, like, they play their lanes pretty decently. And I think just with time, coaching, and stuff like that, they could become a formidable team. It's just not going to be in spring.
That's fair. I think I agree with that too. Nothing they're going to be able to do here besides maybe get a win. That's kind of what we're rooting for.
Yeah,
you can call me a bias. I'll actually accept the bias caster on this one.
I'll take it.
Right? Yeah, I'll take this one. I mean, for sure. Let's see them get a win. I would love to see them do it. I will get amped for them. I will hype them up if they can do it. But just try. Just give me something to talk about. I mean, with Team Oplon.
That's the big thing.
Let me talk about something.
We want to be nice. Like, we don't want to, because we understand, like, these players are people. They're trying to do their best, and in kind of the same way we are, where we want to get to the highest level, so do they. And we get that. But, you know, we got to talk about something, and two, there's a point where we have to be like, okay, like, they're not doing great. I'm not going to say, like I'm not going to be like...
sugarcoat it.
Yeah, I'm not going to, but I'm also not going to be like random Twitch user Anime Boobies 42069 who says stuff like, you're the worst. Why do you play League of Legends? You should hate yourself.
Of course.
And it's just like, okay, yeah, that's terrible, but, you know, we'll be as objective as we can be based on the knowledge we have.
Yeah, no, definitely, for sure. So we'll see what ends up happening. Also, good comment here. We'll check out some of the content maybe on Solari's YouTube channel. I've been watching some of the behind-the-scenes stuff for LFL. You know what I mean? I think it's been some great behind-the-scenes content. And hopefully we could bring some more of that behind-the-scenes content to you guys as well, with some player interviews, talking with coaches, getting more insight. That's definitely the objective here with the podcast, to be able to bring that to you guys. And, yeah, just show content that you wouldn't normally get to see. So that is the entire goal. But I think that is going to do it here for episode number 2, Beyond the Nexus. We're week number 6. It's been an incredible time here so far. We're getting really close to playoffs. I can't wait to cast one of my first best of 5s in playoffs here for the LFL, but we still got a little bit of season left in us. We got to figure out who's even getting there. So should be a great time, but make sure you guys do tune into the rebroadcast. It will roll right after this if you missed any of the games, and head over to the YouTube channel at Northern Arena LOL to watch any games over the entire season, or any games from yesterday, and the games from today will also be posted for tomorrow. So that is going to do it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week for week number 7.
Come tell me that you love me now. I wanna hear you shout it out. I got you so high.